Hello and welcome back to Witch on the Holy Night. My name is Baby Dennis, and last time Sojo had a very long conversation with Father Eri that can be summarized with him discovering more about himself by comparing himself with Aoko. And after he decides that he wants to see Aoko, he's blocked by the other sister who said that they're basically no longer in the room. Aoko and Alice have already left to fight Toko, so he chases after them. And meanwhile, we flash back a tiny bit to when Alice and Aoko encounter Toko. She seems to be alone at the moment, but we all know it's a ruse because she's got Beowulf in the back line getting ready to strike. But she's baiting out the true magic, and now we can continue with the fight. With a burst of pure rage, Aoko made her move. Her colorless shoes sped across the untainted snowfield. Like a stone skipping across water, as Aoko charged forward, she disappeared. Only her footsteps advanced, like bullet holes in the snow. Toko held her ground. Concealment was elementary magecraft. More than likely, the power came from one of Alice's trinkets. It was a simple yet effective countermeasure to Mystic Eyes. Toko's Mystic Eyes used the lock property to bind an opponent. It did not have the Logos property to discern truth through an illusion. Once the magecraft's workings were revealed, its weaknesses was exposed. In mere 4 seconds, her opponent had closed 10 yards and was still speeding up. It appeared that she had given up on the mage battle and was going to move in for melee. The other girl, Alice Kuonji, didn't take a single step. Sneering, Toko raised her left arm, holding it out in front of her threateningly. 10 more yards. Unfortunately, her footprints gave away her position. Toko began engraving a rune into the air, but before she could finish, Aoko's footprints stopped. She was still too far away for close combat. What a strange place to end her attack. No, wait. Could she really stop so suddenly at that speed? Toko made a snap decision. She quickly raised her outstretched arms towards the sky as if saluting the moon. Flames tore through the air. The rune carved into the body above her, bathing in a pillar of flames. No internal resistance spell could help. Rather than simply burning their target, the runes wrapped them in a wreath of flame. Oh, it's the bird again! The assailant screamed, falling onto the snow-covered ground. In agony, she extended a burning hand out of the hellish fire, as if begging for mercy. Okay, maybe it's not. It was the stuff of nightmares. The snow melted as the fire burned the attacker alive. Chirp chirp. Oh wait, maybe. The movement was far too theatrical to be Aoko. It's the bird. Toko had already turned her gaze to Alice. She hadn't been watching the burning corpse at all. Toko knew it wasn't Aoko from the moment the body fell to the ground. Robin's taking a lot of damage recently. Irritated, Toko glared at Alice, while Aoko had vanished into thin air. She hadn't moved at all. Blue energy traced a circle around where she stood. It was the Force to Fourth, a 4-bar grand magecraft, mobilizing her magic crest. Toko only had a single action runes. No, she hadn't mastered anything above 2 bars to begin with. This torrent of energy was too much to handle. The rune formed in the magic circle. Awaz, the rune of withdrawal, was evoked and Aoko's concealment was undone, allowing Toko to utilize her mystic eye. Within her open pupil, the infinite mirrored eyes captured the target in an endless hell. But the mage's sight was literally split in two. The space in front of Aoko distorted, obscuring her form like an icy mist. If Toko's eyes was like opposing mirrors, then this was like sticking a one-way mirror at the triangulation point. With her vision split in two, she couldn't lock onto Aoko. Oh wait, is this literally the mirror familiar that Alice has?
御水の鏡の効果よ。
Ah, yeah, it is.
青子は鏡の Y 字路の奥にいる。一本道から見ているあなたに中心は見渡せない。
Ah, she'll never get a good look at her. Alice explained without concern. Due to the herb Toko made Alice swallow, she was still unable to use her own magecraft. However, she could still use ploys already in motion without using magical energy, such as the mansion's mirror and the aimless little bird. Finally, the magic bullet was loaded. So Alice uses magic to summon it, but if it's already summoned, then she doesn't have to use any magic. Gotcha. Firing another laser! Raising her right arm to reveal her luminescent crest, Aoko took aim at her target 100 feet ahead. Magical energy coursed through her gun barrel arm. From the moment she had received Alice's invisibility, Aoko had begun chanting her magecraft. It took Toko a few seconds to notice. Aoko produced more spins in the awakened magic circuits than she had ever done before. Even more than versus flat snark. She readied not snap nor draw. Instead, she advanced past her third process of compression of magical energy, Magic Blow. If she fired the blue ether that gathered before her, it would fly with the force of 10 tons. Ooh-wee. Using her magic crest to multiply the energy and machine gun to her target, it was enough power to demolish even an old building behind her. Aoko stared intensely at her sister, ready to fire. Toko had no time to counterattack, or even the speed to evade. The fact that she didn't move implied that she knew better than anyone. Acceptance filled her eyes, not fear. Aoko didn't hesitate. She squeezed the trigger on her right hand. And now the wolf's gonna come out. Magic bullet configuration. Oh, okay. Convergent launch. Circuit. Fire! The last words came out like a scream. Under the impact of the ether, the surrounding snow melted and flew around. Oh wait, that's not the effect that's supposed to have. Oh, that's some rune stuff then, probably. Toko was engulfed in dirt. No way she could survive Aoko's magic bullet. It contained every bit of Aoko's magical energy she could muster. Viewing the chaos, Aoko confirmed her victory. No. And yet somehow she felt bitter. That's a load of bull. But then, choosing to deal with the torrent of magical energy she swallowed up later, Toko tutted at Aoko's childishness. Her disappointment was so deep it bordered on despair.
学ぶにしては遅すぎたが、まあ聞いておけ青子。切り札というものは先に出した方の負けなんだよ。
Her voice cold and aloof, she was completely unscathed. The mage stood in the snowfield, not a single speck of dirt on her overcoat. Just before the bullet reached out Toko, she deflected it with magical energy of the same level. Yeah, there was no way that was gonna work. Aoko could only stare at the scene before her. The negation of her magecraft hadn't shocked her, though. Leaf-like objects floated behind her sister. Aoko stared like she was living a nightmare. Countless magic crests poured out from Toko's back. Oh, it all happened in an instant. That looks really cool, I'm not gonna lie. But I'm not exactly sure what that is. Is this some kind of... Shield's not the right word, but was this some kind of barrier? I don't know. The magic bullet approached like a tsunami. Toko lightly snapped her fingers, causing a stream of letters to rush out from behind her. Text became art. Golden flowers bloomed. There must have been hundreds. All sorts of magecraft from even beyond Western Europe. The kind normally carved into the flesh of a mage. The kind Toko Aozaki shouldn't possess. The kind only followers of those schools should know. Blossoming magic crests, brighter than the moon. Inscribed in the air, they formed a totem pole, a guardian beast to protect Toko. She did something.
と、まあこういうわけだ。
Now you see my second form.
レオだけに頼ってはいないことがよくわかったろ。
Toko's expression was steely. Victory was in her grasp, and there was no room to rest on her laurels.
姿を隠したのは鏡の応用か。探知や隔離だけでなく援護まで行えるとはね。三大のプロイには含まれないものの、汎用性の面で言えばあれも破格のプロイだな。
持ち上げるじゃない。何？騙された負け惜しみ？いや、
ただの自画自賛だよ。何しろ今のバージョンは私とマインスターの合作だ。趣味に興じすぎてあれこれと機能を足してしまったと今更ながら悔いているところさ。
Huh. She was part of making the mirror familiar? Or ploy? That's interesting.
その後、青子に見せかけて私に向かってきたのは例のコマドリ。それに気を取られている間の大規模な魔術の発動。
He keeps dying.
私の魔眼はアリスが防ぎ、青子は攻撃だけに専念する。組み立ては悪くはない。よくやったと言っておくよ。
Toko recounted their strategy, sharing her impressions as she went. Ako could not take her eyes off Toko's blooming magic crest. Only Alice was paying close attention to Toko's words.
しかし、それもここまでだ。
I'm gonna see this again. That looks really cool.
惜しいな、青子。わずか2年であれだけの魔術を使えるのなら、あと数年もすれば一流の車種になっていただろうに。
I do remember that Alko said something like that. She probably could have been a world-class marksman. Toko snapped her fingers again. The floating crest began to glow more brightly.
アリス、あれは何？
Alko whispered to Alice, standing next to her, as she held her hand. She could not risk turning around. The second she took her eyes off Toko, the fight would be over.
見ての通り魔術刻印よ。信じられないけど。
Damn, she took that many magic crests, so did you just, like, yank it off people? Alice's voice was filled with shock and discomfort. Alko shared Alice's sentiment. Magic crests were passed down through a family line and took unique forms. At heart, they were merely personalized inscriptions, and technically no different than grimoires. However, the reality was far different. Magecraft had no set form. Without a set shape, the ability to recreate mystics was itself flawed. To craft it into a form required an immeasurable investment of time and devotion. Magic crests were the crystallization of a family's desire and ambition, and proof of a successor's lineage. Crests had no effect on their own, but they were the ultimate symbol of a family. If no mage was willing to imbue themselves with the crest, or lacked the resolve to merge with it, then the crest's meaning was lost. That was a key difference between a crest and a mere spellbook. Crests could not be shared, and imitating them was pointless. It only stood to reason then that even if the crest manifesting behind Toko belonged to someone else, only the original owner could benefit from them.
でも確かに私の魔弾はあの刻印からの魔術で弾かれた。あれはもしかすると。
Searching for answers, Ako squinted her eyes as she glared at Toko. She knew that copying a crest had no purpose. Only the original inheritor could invoke one. There was only one possible conclusion.
そう。肌に刻まず中空に浮かべてるのはそういうこと。
Alko spat a curse at her sister. Toko nodded, pleased at her enemy's quick wit. I don't get it.
ああ、この体には合わないのでな。私の背後の空間に固定している。
Still doesn't change the fact that she probably ended up forcibly stealing them.
本当はね、お前たちのように肉に刻んだ方がいいんだ。魔術の起動が一動作で済むんだから。だが実際に使用するのならこうするしかない。起動までの手順は一つ増えるが、何、マイナスばかりでもない。所詮は人事なんでね。痛みは全く感じない。
And it seemed neither physically nor mentally. Ako knew her sister was inhuman, but she never thought that she would go this far.
合うわけないじゃない。他人の魔術刻印を剥がしてるんだから。 血筋の称号からして馴染むはずがないわ。で奪われた連中は死ぬこともできず、今もどこかに生かされているわけだ。
Wow.
刻印の持ち主が死んだら起動すらできないものね、それ。
Oh man, she didn't really steal the crest. The crests are still on the people, but she's using them by forcibly activating them somehow. And the person who owns the crest is essentially a human battery.
トウコさん、あなた。
非難される覚えはないんだが、私はかかる火の粉を払っただけだよ。向こうから戦いを挑んできたんだから、戦利品ぐらいは用意してもらわないと。
She's just like, those are the spoils of war, my dear sister.
まあ、中にはつまらない単語を口にしたバカ者もいるが、それはそれだ。むしろ優しいと思うけどね。私を殺しに来た連中をわざわざ生かしてあげてるんだから。
その魔術師たちがちゃんと人間の形をしてることを祈るわ、肉親として。
お前ね、私を何だと思ってるんだ。脳だけ保存とか、面倒だから100人ひとまとめにした肉塊とか、そんな手抜きなんぞするものか。きちんとカフェを用意して、食事も娯楽も睡眠も自由に提供してるんだぞ。中には一生ここで暮らしたいなんて騒ぎ立てるバカもいるぐらいだ。
Damn, I knew that she was loaded, but yeah, I didn't know how much. Toko's words were hardly believable, but it was clear that her crests weren't copies. Alice's scowl deepened. What Toko had described had no discernible benefit in her mind. Why had she gone through the trouble of stealing other mages' crests? It would have been more efficient to break down the crest into components and make replicas. For a skilled puppet master like Toko, she could have made a much more powerful puppet with those crests. It would have made a pawn loyal to her every command at that, much more useful than in any enslaved mage.
なんでそんなこと。
It just occurred to me. Aoko's like, how dare you enslave someone? And Soldier was like, bro!
そういう人なのよ、姉貴は。これで行くと決めたらそれしか目に入らない人なの。家庭より結果の人なの。ある日の話よ。テレビでピザの CM をやっててさ、私たちは唐突にあのデブ食を食べたくなった。でも悲しいかな。一般家庭であるうちにあったのはサラミだけ。
Okay.
うちの実家、山奥にあるの知ってるでしょ？
The current one too.
町まで行くのに1時間はかかる。中学1年だった私は我慢できなくて町まで行ったけど、ピザ屋なんか一軒もなくてとぼとぼ帰ったの。
Damn, you had to go an hour for pizza? My condolences. It was a tragedy of living in the countryside. Misaki, which had only recently gotten a conveyor belt sushi restaurant, would not see a pizzeria for another 2 years.
なのに骨折り損で家に帰ったら、姉貴のやつ「おかえり」とか手を振ってピザ食べてやがったのよ。
This is a really weird tangent.
おせんべいを下地にしてみたわとか言って、外見たら鳥3羽と牛1頭丸々消えてて、ああこの女には10日交換とか手間とかお金の問題とかそういうの一切頭にないんだって思い知らされたわ。
Wait, so did she magic a pizza out of crackers, cow, and 3 chickens? Damn. I also agreed that was pretty crazy.
そんな無茶なやつだからガンド打ちで目に見える傷跡を出そうなんて平気で考えるのよね。
He's like, no love lost.
あんなのゲマトリア一節分の栄唱で同じ効果を出せるのに、あくまで呪術にこだわるから空も飛べない人形になるのよ、バカ兄貴。
The thought of the puppet doppelganger made her blood boil. It was clear to Aoko that Toko had done it on purpose to annoy her. Toko furrowed her eyebrows at Aoko's verbal assault. She had been stoic up until now, but speaking rudely about her prized puppet was crossing the line.
その人形に追い詰められたのはお前だったね。それとゲマトリアはカバラの秘術だ。私はルーン専門だからお前のように広く浅く知識を広める気はないよ。 この刻印の所有者の一人からケルトの結界を教わりはしたがね。
Toko looked to the crest over her left shoulder. Its shine was ever radiant, proving that its magecraft was active.
これは城で祖父を封じ込めるのに使っていてね。
Okay, so the grandfather is sealed away?
犯人汎用のドルイド層を閉じ込めたとまではいかないが、そうだな。私では郵便ポストぐらいの大きさが限界か。
Wait, half yokai druid monk? That combination has got me like kind of confused. I'm just gonna keep going.
ほら、昔お前が壊した赤いポスト。ちょうどあれぐらいの可愛い鳥小屋だよ。人間一人分をしまうには窮屈だろうが、祖父は肉体というより霊体に近い。見ようによってはそっちの方がふさわしいかもしれないね。
Grandfather's more spirit than body? Huh. Tofo stifled a sinister laugh, her explanation chilling. Her cold veneers seemed to slip slightly when it came to her grandfather. Her smile betraying the long-festering hatred she clung onto.
そういったわけでね。さっきの青子の魔術を防いだので、この刻印もしばらくは使用不能なんだ。
Oh.
今のが本当の魔法だったなら、わずか3行の刻印では打ち消せなかっただろうに。
So she's really baiting
お
this.
前は僅差で負けたんだ。恥じることはないよ。
So if you'd used true magic, a 3-line crest wouldn't have countered it. You only lost by a slight margin.
じゃあ、そろそろ終わりにしよう。抵抗をするのは自由だが、ベオ相手にそれは辛いぞ。
Toko snapped her fingers one more time. The golden werewolf was hiding in the school building. The signal to him echoed eerily through the surrounding woods. Before the echo stopped, Alko shouted back at Alice.
行ってアリス！
The order sounded like a reprimand, but Alice silently obeyed. Without hesitation, she left Alko behind to handle Toko, and made for the forest. If defeat was inevitable, it would be pointless for both of them to die. If one of them could survive, there could be a round 3. That was why Alko decided to be the sacrificial pawn.
トウコ自身の切り札も分かったし、アリスが本調子になれば勝てない相手じゃない。
Oh no, I think I see Alice's silhouette, and she's kind of like in her leaned over pain pose. Alko muttered bitterly to herself as Alice's feet crunched through the snow. Okay, no, she's good. Instead of cursing her own death, she cursed the fact that she would not see Alice defeat Toko. For what else was there to curse except this? Alice disappeared into the forest. Feeling her fellow mage's presence fade, Alko continued to glare at her sister.
いつまでじらす気？私、待たされるのは好きじゃないんだけど。
Speaking of waiting, the werewolf Toko had called was nowhere to be seen. It should not have taken him more than a few seconds to come out flying out of this old school building. Oh no, what if they thought that she... Oh no, what if they thought that Beowulf was in the building, but he was actually just waiting outside towards where Alice is going?
そうせくな。今赤ずきんを追っているところだ。
Oh wow.
黒帽子の彼女をそう例えるのはやや無理があるがね。
Her tone reeked of irony. The words traveled aimlessly across the schoolyard like a rambling announcement. Alko stood frozen and dumbfounded. Everything Toko was saying seemed so far away from reality. Alko was done being fooled, so she turned around. The moonlight shining off of the fallen snow allowed her to see far into the forest. From the white darkness, a lone boy came into view, walking towards her. Yeah, he could not have been any taller than Alko's chest, but he carried Alice over his shoulders with ease. So what did he look like? As if she was nothing, he tossed her body upwards. She arced through the air for several feet before dropping headfirst before Alko's eyes. Damn, that was really quick. Her neck would snap on impact. Even though she was wiser not to, Alko reached out and caught her. Alice's light body weighed heavy as she fell into Alko's arms. The stitches on her wounds tore, dyeing Alko's arms crimson. Alko gritted her teeth, fighting the pain that shot through her body and the sensation of warm blood. No, again? Alice did not respond, but Alko could see that she was at least conscious. The werewolf must have ambushed her right after she ran to the woods. Alice bled heavily from where the wolf tore her abdomen open last night, just like he had done to Alko. Oh my god, she thinks too many steps ahead! Cursing her own carelessness, she gently laid Alice's body down. She set her sights on the blonde-haired boy, her new target. Oh, so many fairy tales! Oh, that's what he looks like. Even in the face of Alko's rage, he did not stop smirking. I see. He stared back at the girls, eyes gleaming, twinkling with excitement at the brutality to come. The blonde hair and green eye that she saw last night. And his effeminate features now seemed ethereal, like he had changed into another being from another planet. Toko's voice echoed from afar. The boy's grin broadened. Nobody could have expected what came next. Alko rushed headfirst at the boy. Faster than the robin decoy, she sped up, blood dripping from both arms. Toko watched wide-eyed at the spectacle. Alice could only look with vacant eyes as she laid helplessly on the ground. The werewolf boy was caught off guard by the prey becoming the predator. Oh, she's about to kick him! Alko crossed a 20-foot gap in a second before planting the foot in the snow. It arrested her momentum and pivoted her body like a top. Even if he instantly understood what was coming, the boy wouldn't be able to dodge in time. Using the momentum from her sprint, she pushed her leg into the ground and sprang up. With deadly timing, her roundhouse kick swung in a wide arc towards the boy's neck, sending an explosion of force to his brainstem. Oh, he didn't budge at all! It was an expert display of martial arts, strengthened by magical energy. She got in the hang of close combat while fighting Toko's puppets. The violent kick was powerful enough to shatter a tree trunk. Man, I know this is technically like an upskirt, but like, she should probably wear more stuff. It's really cold. But I guess Alice brought the wrong stuff. The boy did not move. Alko's right shin connected firmly and stopped. A shockwave rippled through his neck. It was the same feedback Alko had felt when she destroyed the puppet. Even if he wasn't defeated, she had to have severely damaged his spine. As she looked at him to confirm her kill, the boy simply stared back at her, not even bothering to twitch an eyebrow. I can't leave unfinished food.
それで首を狙ったのはすごいよね。女の人は本能的に自分の体をかばうものだってトウコさんは言ってたのに。けど残念。せっかくの勇気も無駄でした。僕の体毛の質はこの姿でも変わらない。産毛だけでもお姉さんの蹴りを受け止めることはできる。
Peach fuzz? Okay. The only one hurt between the two was Alko. The leg that she had lodged into his neck was totally numb, like it had been chopped off clean with a hatchet.
それに少しだけ迷いがあったな。くっつけたばっかりの足だからかばったでしょ。人間が僕の相手をするならそんなこと気にしちゃいけないのに。ああ、でも。
The boy smiled, basking in Alko's shock and awe. She could not free her leg. No doubt, as soon as she regained her footing, he would tear her stomach open.
どっちにしろミンチだから気にしても仕方がないよね。
Oh, oh!
もったいない。せっかく治ったばかりなのに。
Goodbye, stomach. Alko was not sure, but felt like he had sunk his fingers into the flesh of her right leg. Oh, her right leg. He was right about her leg. She barely had any feeling in it. It had been completely paralyzed after the last attack, and was now back in the same horrid state. Except this time, instead of being torn into pieces, it had been crushed to the bone. Her leg might have been numb, but just the look of it was enough to horrify her, the way it was crumpled, all that blood. Any normal person would have died from shock. As if thinking about someone else, Toko considered how cruel Magic Crest could be.
あれまだ目が死んでない。あんまり苦しめたくないんだけど、頑丈なのも考えものだよ。
Oh man, he's like, ooh. Well, the boy thrusted his hand out at Aoko's chest. Her consciousness flickered from the sudden pain of a stake, no, a child's fist piercing her torso. The scenery flew by. She soared through the air like a rag doll tossed away by a bored child. Just like Alice a moment ago, she tumbled through the air and hit the ground, hard. Well, she's in a bad spot. Her right leg was crushed. Her chest caved in. I love how that's just her model, but sideways, instead of like a different image of her on the ground. It was as if her heart had been scooped out of her chest. Each gasp of breath left her wanting more. Was this what it felt like to see stars? The terrifying part was the pain. It never let up. Desperately trying to suck in oxygen, she could still feel his fist. Leisurely, the boy strolled across the snow towards Aoko's broken body, his red tongue gliding over his lips. He stared at his prey, who was desperately trying to breathe, his eyes filled with glee. Aoko bit down the temptation to drift away, even though she could find no reason to fight on. The snow had broken her fall slightly, but her death was all but certain. The fist-sized crater in her chest and her mangled leg made sure of that. Even though she knew she was a broken mess, her magic crest frantically worked to resuscitate her heart. But why? Oh, you can see Toko in the background. What? The sight of Toko in the distance was the only thing that kept her conscious. Her sister looked surprised for some reason, like she was witnessing some strange phenomenon. That wasn't like her. Wondering what it was, Aoko tried to stay conscious. Feebly trying to raise her head, she looked to where Toko was staring. Why did she look like that when she was so close to victory? Oh, back to Sojiro probably. It's Christmas! His heart was beating faster than normal. The fragmented and disturbing image kept returning, and he desperately pushed them to the back of his mind. Oh yeah, he said he never wanted to see something like that again. There were thoughts that shook his resolve. He did his best to file them away into an unseen corner of his consciousness. Right now, he could only focus on controlling his breathing and his exertion. Just stay calm, he repeated to himself. He had not stopped for a second since leaving the church, even without giving a thought of what he would do next. So many traffic lights, so many people. It was Christmas. There's no way he could find a taxi. Waiting for one was not an option. It was why he had put his trust in his legs. He dashed through the city streets. He had to find a shorter route than last night. His heart was ready to jump out of his chest, pounding like a hammer against the fire bell. He had no intention of giving up yet, but he could not seem to calm himself down. In his precarious condition, even surrender seemed too great for an effort to spare. Visions of horrible outcomes flashed through his mind. No, calm. He needed to stay calm. That was his only weapon. He was painfully aware that he was powerless. The best thing he could do was to keep his mind on straight, or head on straight. While he wrangled with his mind, his pulse seemed to quicken with every step. The forest was faintly lit by the moon. That was more than enough on such a bare mountain. He followed the two sets of footprints. Ahead lay a situation he had nothing to do with, just like at the amusement park. Even if you go, there's nothing you can do for them. The only effect her admonishing words had was to hasten his pace. He pushed the ground with his legs even harder, trying to leave his doubt in the kicked-up snow behind him. Of course, he was powerless. The pain in his chest told him so. At best, he would be useless. At worst, he would be a liability. He recalled the binding spell placed on him at the church. It did not matter. His body told him that he would regret being torn to pieces less than if he did nothing. Not once did his legs fail him as he ran through the woods, though it felt as though his heart could at any moment. His weakness screamed at him from within. Just like back at the amusement park, he was beyond reason or circumstance now. Ultimately, I just want to help her. That was all he really desired. His heart pounded with vigor as he ran through the dark, wintry forest. Only one thing gnawed at his mind. Not concern for the girls, nor anger towards Toko. The red roses bursting forth from her limbs. Screams of agony, like childbirth. The harsh reality of something beautiful dying. The nightmare was tenacious. Never again, never ever again did he want to see something like that again, if he could help it. Just ahead was a forest clearing. The moonlight shone on the old school building like a spotlight. Once again, those thoughts crept back. He could not bear seeing something like that again. That was why he ran. But if he had to face it a second time, how could he stay calm? Oh no, and he did see something similar a second time. No. With that thought in mind, he arrived at the clearing. Somehow, his frantic breathing, his rising and lowering shoulders stopped. No exhaustion. No inertia, just blankness, like his mind was frozen in time. This was the second time he felt like this. But the nausea and dizziness from the first time, the pathetic whining of the last few weeks, the doubts clouding his mind, they were all gone. Displaced entirely from his mind by an even stronger emotion. His heart pounded with the force of a sledgehammer. It was a primal sound, loud enough to bring him to his senses. Sojiro stepped into the clearing, letting out a deep but steady exhale. Oh, he's ready. Although his eyes were locked with the blonde-haired boys, his concentration was focused inward. Be calm. Be calm. Every fiber of his being worked to control his breathing. The clearing told the story of Aoko and Alice's crushing defeat. Aoko was lying face up in the snow, her right leg bright red and crushed at the thigh. Her eyes were glazed over, but Sojiro could tell that she was still bravely fighting. Judging by her spluttering, she had taken a hard blow to her chest or back. Sojiro deduced that it was most likely both. Alice's injuries seemed less serious than Aoko's, but she laid motionless on the ground nevertheless. She was lying across from Aoko, face down in the snow, arms out in the front, as though pushing herself up was too painful. Before the old school building stood the figure of the maid she had seen before. Paying her no mind, Sojiro began to walk forward. Feeling calmer since arriving at the clearing, he advanced towards Aoko. Toko did nothing to stop him. No one noticed, but the faintest look of worry flickered in her eyes.
お兄さんもその人たちの仲間?
The child werewolf spoke amicably, confident in his victory, and perhaps also eyeing up a new meal. Sojiro ignored him and kept walking towards Aoko. The complete disregard wiped the smile from the boy's face. He's like, oh no, I'm eating you next. I'm eating you first. Still, Sojiro carried on. The beast's feelings were the last thing on his mind. Once he reached Aoko, he looked down at her with a pained expression on his face. Oh man, the Beowulf just looks like, you son of a bitch. Strangely, he was at a loss for words. After a slight hesitation, all he could manage was to say,
なってないぞ、生徒会長。行く時ぐらい声をかけるものだろう。
His awkward remark was half scolding and half affectionate.
このバカ。
Despite the pain in her stomach, Aoko was able to throw an insult his way. I always have the energy to do that.
安心した。余裕あるじゃないか、青崎。
His voice brightened, as if buying her bravado. The truth was that she barely had the strength to live. Despite that, Sojiro looked like he wanted to respond in his usual way. Something like, "See, Aozaki? You're too tough to die even when someone kills you."
あんた
As soon as she tried to speak, she ran out of breath. Sojiro had heard her loud and clear this time. He might have looked absent-minded, but he knew exactly how dangerous the situation was. Ako knew because his carefree-sounding words did not match his expressionless face. Oh man, he looks dead inside.
何のつもりで
Before she could say doing, she coughed painfully. Sojiro pressed his finger to his lips and nodded. Ako could not quite believe it, but looked as though Sojiro had gestured her to not speak.
だってほら状況はあの時と一緒だ君がやられたら次はこっちの番なんだろうだから協力をしに来たんじゃないか
Aww.
まあ何もできないのもあの時と変わってはいないんだけど
Ako did not know what to say. She could only look up at him, amazed and awe. The werewolf stared at them, visibly frustrated. After all, he believed himself to be the noblest of all creatures. Ignoring him was treason, punishable by death. Had Toko not been there, he would have sunk his teeth into Sojiro's neck by now. He was sure that he had been intimidating enough. However, his prey did not show any signs of fear. It was hard to imagine, but maybe, just maybe, this guy did not view him as a threat.
まあ誰でもいいんだけど、筋張った肉は歯ごたえがあっていいし、何より食い出がある。先にそのお兄さんから始めても構わないよね。
The boy wolf called out once again. Still not responding, Sojiro raised a hand to his nose. Cool, calm, and collected. Paying no mind to the boy, yet keeping an eye on him.
匂うな
Everyone present was confused. Even Toko's like, what is he doing? No one seemed to be able to smell anything but him.
へえ、何が匂うっていうのかな、お兄さん。
Bale's voice retained his usual arrogance, but was tinged with impatience. The boy was unable to hide his irritation at being ignored. Finally, Sojiro turned to face the boy, just a short distance from him. Aw, you smell, you son of a bitch.
品のない肉の匂いがするこれだから犬は嫌いなんだ
That's why I hate dogs. Oh no. His voice was filled with disgust and contempt. I still don't know how he's gonna beat him because he's like a mythical creature. I know they said that maybe non-magic was the best solution, but like he's still gonna be a giant wolf. Sojiro was mainly speaking to himself. Oh. But the werewolf boy had never felt so insulted. Even if it was not Sojiro's intent at all. Like, huh? In a moment, the wind picked up, perhaps signaling a change in the werewolf's mood. A fiery gale whipped around him, carving patterns into the snow.
ソジロ
Sensing he was about to be killed, Alko desperately tried to move, where a broken body would not respond. After hearing Sojiro's insult, Alice was unsuccessfully struggling to get up to her feet too. In complete contrast, Sojiro stood there, firmly and unfazed. The little blonde boy's well of patience had run dry.
そうか。要するに、僕が子供だからって舐めてるんだね。お兄さんは。
Oh, big mistake. Alright, what? What? His time playing human was over. Enraged, the boy transformed. He grew larger and larger, golden fur sprouting from his pale flesh. His mouth grew razor-sharp fangs. His hands grew claws. Drawing from the magical energy in the air, he transformed into a preternatural beast, a wolf in the shape of a human.
中華の許しは出していないぞ、ベオ。
Toko yelled at him, but the werewolf did not respond. He only huffed deep breath of hot air.
バカな話が。
That was all Sojiro could say in response to the boy's metamorphosis. Such a transformation was the stuff of nightmares. What was worse, the beast now towered above him. It was enough to make anybody question reality itself. Amazing. Sugoi. Seeing his praised reaction satisfied the werewolf, and his maw twisted into a satisfied grin. He was a strange one, this guy, but meat was meat. However, the beast's arrogance was short-lived. The prey breathed a sigh of exasperation before speaking. You really are a dog. I love Sojiro so much. He's so blunt. You could hear a pin drop even in the snow. Aoko, Alice, and Toko were all dumbfounded. Were they really seeing a human not just stare a wolf down, but insult it to its face? They simply could not believe it. Oh, he morbed. He morbed. It was too late. Any trace of the wolf's pride or dignity faded away. The onlookers realized that the wolf was serious. But Toko's command fell on deaf ears. The wolf prepared to lunge, his emerald eyes fixed on Sojiro not 30 feet in front of him. Oh, I wonder why she doesn't want to kill Sojiro. I thought she already deemed him as an enemy. A mere 30 feet. A half second was all he needed. Another half second to bring his claws down and slice his prey from head to toe. A roar of joyous, unbridled fury echoed far and wide. It was the only warning the werewolf gave as he exploded towards Sojiro. 1 second. A golden blur swept forth in a furious gust, too fast for the eyes to follow. In the face of unworldly speed, there was only one thing to do. Sojiro stepped forward, a silent shadow opposite the beastly silhouette of the incoming werewolf. He needed exactly 3 paces. He bet his entire life around the 3 feet of distance. In a blink of an eye, death would be upon him. Yet he did not show the slightest indication that he intended to avoid the lunging behemoth. The wolf's forelegs slammed into the ground with earth-shaking fury. His back muscles tensed up so much that they seemed to barely contain his frame as he swept a raised paw downward. Okay, what is he gonna do? Sojiro's small step neatly evaded the claws. But he had a different motive. He was merely positioning himself for the next move. His intention was never to avoid anything. From the beginning, his mind was focused on one thing. What is it? What is it? One point to aim for. One mind. One breath. He picked up the perfect opening in the wolf's torso, the precise microsecond between contraction and relaxation. Though that one point alone was a crack in the dam of life. He's just gonna punch him? Oh, he punched him! He punched the werewolf in its chest with his feeble human strength. Oh my god, he punched him so hard that his arm freaking bursted. There was a dull thud and a burst of blood. The twisted flesh and gore were all Sojiro's own. The werewolf's raised claw convulsed. From an insignificant impact, the beast's body was the first to collapse, and then his spirit. There was a moment of utter incomprehension. The wolf opened his jaws to try and pull the air into his lungs. Gasping, he began to topple forward. The slender figure slipped through to his flank. Oh, he's not done yet! Oh my god, his arm's completely destroyed. He left-handed that, I think. No, actually, I can't tell which way his body's facing. The next blow pierced him like a spear. Ignoring his mangled left arm, the silhouette whirled around and drove his right elbow into the collapsing werewolf's back. Oh, there was another muffled impact. The second strike penetrated the exact same spot the first strike had, crushing the beast's heart. Oh my god! This time, The blood that flew into the air belonged to the gasping wolf. What? Pinpoint destroyed. The werewolf fell to the ground, choking on his own blood. He did not get up. He showed no sign of life. It was over. There was no remorse, no hesitation in that brief act of violence. The perfect, furious golden beast lay still, felled in a mere 3 seconds. What kind of super secret martial arts did he learn? No sane person would have bet on this outcome. Oh my, he looks so scary. Oh my god, look at that. I can't believe he took him out. Like, seriously. His breathing calm, the victor stood over the fallen behemoth's body. That's what I want to know. Even as the beast lay crumpled in the snow, he could not grasp what had just happened. His heart had ruptured, cutting the blood flow to his body and brain, leaving him helpless. That much he knew. If he were a normal creature, he would be dead. As it was, this was a trifling inconvenience. Once his heart was repaired, his body would heal as well. It was not as if he had been struck by magecraft exceeding his own mystical nature. This was little different than a grazed knee, which is what was so strange. Your heart does not stop from a grazed knee. The werewolf frantically searched his memory. He managed to remember right up until the moment he raised his claw. But what had come after that? Given the right transformation, he knew that he could withstand even a cannon blast. How had a puny human dropped him? Wait, before that, he had to figure out what exactly his opponent did to him. The moment he got in close, yes, he felt a small impact. The attack was so accurate that it probably only affected his heart. A small impact, it broke Sojiro's arm. Ridiculous. Even if that was possible, there was no way that that alone could stop a werewolf's heart. In the end, no matter how much he thought about it, nothing added up. The answer was out of reach for a werewolf with no knowledge of being backed into a corner, let alone the limits of human skill. Only one thing was certain: he had lost. He tried to piece together the sequence of events. The explosion in his chest, the flash of white. After that, as he was falling over, he took another blow to the back. That was the one that disrupted his heart. Could lose? Indeed. It was physically impossible. The boy gnashed his teeth and tensed his body in indignation at this unfair conclusion. See his model like, whoa! Enough thinking. He was ready. From the ground, he glared at his enemy to his side. The very next moment, an unknown type of pain coursed down his spine. It had eyes, cold eyes, staring, piercing. Oh my god! Colorless. The moon looked more alive. Its arms were broken. The moon looked more alive than Sojiro. Oh man. Its inhumanly powerful attack had mangled them beyond recognition. If it was in pain, it would have cried out. But it was silent. Was it ever alive? Those dead eyes. He'd seen eyes like those before. Those eyes without hatred, without joy, without any feeling behind them at all. It was a mindless insect. The wolf's hair stood on end. What was this creeping chill crawling up his spine? Having never experienced fear, the werewolf did not know what had become of him. Despite countless clashes over the other mystics, it had been a human that broke him. He knew beasts even larger than himself. He knew legendary creatures like himself. He did not know this. He never met, much less imagined, a human-sized bug. The chill down the werewolf's spine was so vicious that it threatened to split him into two. If he moved even an inch, it would crush his skull underfoot. Oh my god. Oh, he's gonna recover, but not mentally. In spite of the despair gripping him, the boy paradoxically sensed that this opponent would not move at all, or his opponent would not move at all. This human would exhibit no further violence. It was a creature, no, a stone, that held no animal instincts. It masqueraded as a human. The contradiction grated against his heart, his values. A phantom pain born of an unknown emotion. Fear. Oh my god, it's really getting to, oh my god. It wasn't just grating, it was like many needles slowly digging up into his heart. This had been his first taste of doubt, of reality. Such contradictions existed in the world after all. There are irrationalities and questions that you did not want to hear the answers to. The suppressed pain suddenly flowed through his body like a raging river. This was also a first. Until now, he had always been able to control pain. He had never known what it was like to tremble. An elemental might have felt sorry for him if it were here to watch. How sad, born complete, yet lost in the lunacy of the human world. Yep, he's broken, alright. His heart had fully regenerated. Howling in mental agony, the beast clutched his own trembling body. Those eyes, those human eyes looking straight through him. And then, the boy realized the only reason he was still alive. Even with both arms broken, the human could have finished him off with his legs. But it mattered not, because his opponent was giving him a taste of his own medicine. This was not revenge for trying to kill him. This was revenge for the wounds he'd inflicted on the girls. The absurdity of it all made his throat tighten. His breathing was frantic. This human had no sense of self. It had no concern for its own safety when it stood between him and the girls. That must be why it had no hate, or fear, or perhaps even intent to kill him. Indeed, the fact that he was alive had nothing to do with the human's will. The fight was machine-like, so was its judgment. An eye for an eye, and nothing more. If the werewolf had killed one of the girls, this exchange would have ended differently. He shuddered at the thought. He had never entertained such a possibility. He had never had to, because he was supposed to be the one exception to that rule. Agony kicked him hard in the gut. No matter the mystic, nothing was immune from injury, from decay. The boy finally understood an obvious law of the world. Or rather, he had been taught. Those eyes, they would not stop staring down at him. Retribution was a universal law. He was now painfully aware of that fact. And yet, the one who brought the form to this idea was this human. The pain of defeat, the pain in his heart, the pain of comprehending the incomprehensible. Pain, pain, pain! The impossibility of it all shattered his perfect world. It ate at him, consuming every fiber of his being. The doubt made his head spin. It was too much. Humans were impossible to understand. Oh, so like physically... Physically he's intact and recovered, but because this was his first loss, and a loss that could have led to his death, he's just terrified. So he... Oh man, he's done. He's mentally scarred. He had not been made to face the death of another, but his own. Unable to cope, he reverted to his human form. Quietly, he shivered like a frightened child in a mother's lap. Well, I didn't think that would happen. Still lying in the snow, Alko choked on her words, unable to entirely comprehend what had unfolded. She could not hide the trembling in her voice. Speaking in his usual way, Sojiro nonchalantly turned towards her.
何って、今自分が何をしたか分かってんの？
Yeah, I fucking punched him twice. She shouted angrily, as though he had done something wrong. Sojiro looked surprised, wondering what on earth he had done to upset her. He lowered his gaze back to the wolf boy. Knitting his brow in dismay, Sojiro finally realized what Aoko was referring to.
心外だな。青崎は分かってると思ってた。
He looked at her in disappointment.
分かってるって何をよ。
Feeling slightly affronted, Aoko responded curtly. Sojiro sighed.
山じゃ、熊はそう珍しいものじゃない。
You know, this is just your everyday standard fare in the mountains.
以前、確かに言ったじゃないか。
Aoko's jaw dropped. It took her a moment to process what he had just said. She recalled some meaningless conversation or other from who knows when.
君、もしかして俺をバカにしているのか？まったく。なんで熊を倒すためなんかに修行しなくちゃいけないんだ。
Yeah, meanwhile, I trained to fight bears. Yes, now she thought about it. They had spoken about that. He'd mentioned being familiar with large beasts, and she couldn't deny that she had heard him utter some anachronistic nonsense about training to deal with them. Which meant he was used to dealing with animals larger than himself. If he'd lived the sort of life that involved run-ins with wild bears, then a man-wolf might only have been surprising, but not particularly frightening. Aoko hung her head. After all this time, who was it that really made no sense?
だわ。あなたの勝ちよ、宗十郎。
It was hard to tell whether she spoke in admiration or exasperation. Either way, she slouched in the snow. Aoko spoke quietly enough so only she could hear her words. Alright. I'm gonna stop here for today. That was... Holy crap, that was not... I did not expect that. He two-shotted Beowulf after all the damage he had caused. Beowulf, the being that took down, like, what was it? Like the Thames troll that had like 50 tons of force in every punch. Easy. Just... And he's down. Oh my god, that was kind of epic though. Oh man. What the hell? I'm still in shock. I don't know what to say. That was really cool, but like, it kind of felt a little bit like a Deus Ex Machina moment because they had to take care of Beowulf somehow, and you know, Sojiro is definitely, you know, not a normal person. He's definitely very off in a lot of, you know, situations. But to take down a large werewolf creature, I'm still not really convinced, but he did it. He did it. And he did not through like not through like pure strength, but from sheer like trauma that he inflicted on the little child. Oh my god, that's hilarious. But we still have one boss left to deal with, and that is Toko. I don't know how much longer this is gonna be, but yeah, this might take like, I'm gonna assume like 2 or 3 more episodes. I don't feel like it's gonna be like one more, but we'll tackle the story, more of the story, next time. Until then, I will be seeing you. See ya.